Good afternoon, Louisiana, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Monday, August 29th, better known as the one and only birthday of Jim Derry Jr. And that is
Happy
why
birthday, Jim.
we gave Jim the day off. He's not here. It's really a happy day for us too, because we don't have to listen to Jim tell us how wrong we are about everything, which is fantastic. So Zach Ewing here with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. A couple of things on the docket today, and only a couple, but they're both going to be taking some time. We're going to take our time on both of them. One is wrapping up the Saints preseason. They played the Chargers last Friday night, got their first preseason win, and also kind of wrapping up our AFC South preview and moving to our final division of our NFL betting previews, and that would be the NFC South. So we'll talk some more Saints. And then in about 15 minutes, none other than Advocate sports columnist Scott Rabalais is joining us, and we are going to do a college football preview for the last big chunk of the show. We'll talk LSU with Rab. We'll talk Florida State LSU with Rab. We'll also widen that out to the SEC picture, the national title picture, and even some of the other conferences, depending on what we have time for. So that's what's on the plate for today's Bayou Bets. I'd like to remind you that we are powered by Caesars Sportsbook, and you can join the action by going to NOLA.com/Caesars. And your first bet, this is pretty cool, anything you bet on up to $1,250, if you lose, you get a free bet back in that amount. And so it's basically like a free refund, store credit, so to speak, on your first bet. If it does not win, go to NOLA.com/Caesars or use promo code NOLAFULL. Another cool thing we've got going on, if you do that today, this is good through actually, I think tomorrow morning, go to NOLA.com/LSU ticks. And instead of getting that free bet giveaway, you could get a ticket to LSU Florida State in the Dome next Sunday. So use code NOLATIX2 or go to NOLA.com/LSU ticks for that one. That's LSU TIX. And you can go to the game, Florida State LSU, next Sunday. Hello, Tamika. We're going to talk about the Houdats in a minute. And this is absolutely what I was trying to say. Our present on Jim's birthday is no Jim. Happy day to us. Also, by the way, it is, on a more somber note, it is Katrina Day, Hurricane Katrina Day, and last year it was Hurricane Ida Day. And so our thoughts are with all of those affected by those disasters, those catastrophes, and also very happy for Jim that he doesn't have to share his birthday with one this year. So that's all very good. Let's talk Saints. Last year, speaking of Hurricane Ida, their final preseason game got canceled. Hard to say that had any effect on them, but it did. This year, they got to play their final preseason game, Spencer, and they looked pretty damn good. For the time the starters and second string guys were in there, Saints won 27-10. Interesting thing from a betting perspective, that total was 36.5 all week. If you got it over 36.5 during the week, you were a winner, but it ticked up to 37 on game day, and that was a push. So it was one of those things where half a point movement really did mean a big deal. But I think more importantly for Saints fans, the Saints look good.
Yeah, most definitely. They look very sharp. Jameis did well in his action. The receivers look good. So, the only, I guess, negative was the Trevor Penning injury. That was unfortunate. But as far as the skill players, everyone looked the part. Hopefully Mike Thomas can come back soon, because with him added in it, the offense would look really lethal at that point. So just got to have everybody healthy. If the offense is healthy, then they'll definitely be a lot better than last season's disaster.
Yeah, Jameis was 4 of 4 for 59 yards on the one drive that he led. That was a touchdown by Mark Ingram. And then Andy Dalton led a drive. He was 5 of 5 for 73 yards. I think he was actually in for 2 series. And so you put those two guys together who, look, barring disaster, Jameis Winston and Andy Dalton are going to take every snap at quarterback this year for the Saints, minus maybe 1 or 2 Taysom Hill trick play type situations. But those two guys, Winston and Dalton, 9 of 9 for 132 yards. No touchdowns. Mark Ingram got both of the touchdowns by the first team and second team offense. But honestly, they looked pretty good. And Ian Book didn't look bad either. 11 of 15 for 81 yards and a touchdown, also ran for 50 yards. Of course, he was going against the backups. But yeah, T says who dat. Saints looked good. We noticed, by the way, speaking of Jim, his favorite bet all year long has been the over the win total for the Saints, which was at 7.5, and then it immediately went up to 8. And just recently, it's gone up to 8.5. And now at Caesars, that 8.5 over is juiced to, I think, minus 130. So there is clearly a ton of money coming in on the Saints. Some of that is definitely sharp money. Some of it is also the fact that this is the first football season with live sports betting in Louisiana. And so I think a lot of you Houdat Nation out there are betting on the Saints. I think we're seeing that.
Right. Yeah, I put a little something on the Saints over because it's just one of those things to where I feel like as long as the team stays healthy, they should win double digit games. I'm thinking 10 plus if everyone's healthy because the defense last year was an elite unit. I would think that should carry over into this year with the reinforcements from this off season. I know Malcolm Jenkins retired, but you brought in Honey Badger and Marcus May to shore up the secondary and the defensive line. We know what they're made of. And with all the reinforcements at the skill positions, especially wide receiver, I mean, this team looks, on paper, it looks like a playoff team.
Yeah, I encourage you all to read in this morning's Times-Picayune and Advocate, and you can also find it online at NOLA.com, of course. But our Saints team, Jeff Duncan, Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, Taryn Wack, did kind of a roundtable of what they expect and where their concerns are. And I mean, listen, these people are paid to be objective about the team. They're not fans of the Saints, and they are all pretty optimistic. I will say one concern that they had that I share is the offensive line. With Trevor Penning's injury, he's going to be out for quite a while, as you said. James Hurst has been also banged up, and quite frankly, even when he's in, I don't know that that's the strongest guy you can put at left tackle in the league. Ryan Ramchick's been banged up. So, yeah, I mean, the offensive line and its depth and its health are certainly an issue. Scott says, hola to the gurus of the Big Easy. Hola to you, Scott. Good to see you. I want to finish up our NFL division preview from last week. That was the AFC South. The one team we didn't get to on Thursday was the Tennessee Titans. Very polarizing team here, Spencer. Titans have look, they were the number one seed in the AFC last year. I mean, they have every chance to make the playoffs and to be another Super Bowl contender. The odds don't really show that, though. I mean, you look at that, the odds show they're barely better than 50-50 to make the playoffs. The win total is 9.5, but it's juiced to the under. And they're not even a favorite to win their own division, which we know Houston and Jacksonville very weak, but it's the Colts who are favored to win this division. What do you make of the Titans?
Yeah, I think the reason they're not really favored to do much this year is because they had in my opinion, a poor offseason. I mean, you trade AJ Brown and you get Treylon Burks, the rookie, and he hadn't really looked the part so far. And then
he got hurt also. Yeah.
Right. And then then Derrick Henry's another year older coming off a major injury. And then we know Tannehill's no sure thing at QB. I know they drafted Malik Willis, but I mean, if you're a contending team, you definitely don't want a project quarterback like Malik Willis playing. So to me, the offense has way too many question marks, and the defense, to me, isn't quite good enough to get them over the hump. I know Mike Vrabel's a great coach, which I know that's what's kept them afloat. That's why they got the 1 seed last year, even without Derrick Henry, was that they're just very well coached. They play above their talent. Like their roster talent doesn't look all that great, but they usually rise above that. But I feel like, though, this year their roster to me looks worse than last year. And last year's roster was already kind of thin. So it's just, I just don't really like this team. I feel like they exceeded expectations last year, and I feel like that's going to catch up to them this year.
Yeah. And don't tell him I said this, but it's a shame Jim's not here to provide the counterpoint, because I know he's high on the Titans and never seems to understand why sharp bettors tend to fade the Titans. And look, last year, Jim was right. The Titans were the number one seed in the AFC. I mean, everyone was fading them last year too. But part of this for me too, Spencer, as we look at the AFC South odds incomplete, is I'm really high on the Colts. I bet the Colts minus 125 to win this division. I know that's a lot of juice to pay. But you look at that team last year, they started out real slow. Obviously, they weren't going to win the division, but they did have a chance, every chance in the world to make the playoffs. All they had to do in week 18 was beat the Jacksonville Jaguars and couldn't do it. But that was all with Carson Wentz at quarterback. Now you put Matt Ryan back there. And I just am really high on this Colts team. I also bet them to win the AFC, I think at 13-1. I think this could be the year the Colts are like a top seed in the AFC, or a top 2 seed maybe, and getting some home playoff games.
Yeah, Adam Chernoff brought up the point about that the Colts being in the AFC South could end up the number 1 seed because of their easy schedule. It's probably the easiest division in the AFC. So, I could see that. It's tough for me to picture him in the Super Bowl because I feel like at some point Matt Ryan's choke artistry is going to come out and he's going to cost them. But I feel like, though, yeah, as far as the season, like they should be a double-digit win team and win the division, be a high seed. I like them for the most part, but they, man, I do see Jim's point about Ryan. He always seems to he just can't quite get over the hump. It doesn't seem, but
my prediction is the Colts will be one win away from clinching the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they will take a 28-3 lead in that game. And then we'll see what happens after that. That's my prediction.
There we go. Yeah, and
they got a better defense than that Falcons team did.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as long as Ryan will make it, I'm going to throw 3 picks to ensure that we do it again.
Yeah,
28-3. Just
we had to throw that barb in there.
He'd rather 10-3 than 28-3.
Saints Falcons in 12 days or 13 days, people. So we had to throw that in there. Yes. Speaking of the Saints and the Falcons, the last division that we're previewing here in the last week of the NFL offseason is the NFC South. We saved the home division for last. And this is fascinating. And we'll talk more about this in depth on Thursday as we get into the team by team of it. But this line has been just dramatically changing. I mean, at one point, the Buccaneers were like minus 400. Now they're minus 280. The Saints were 5-1. Now they're plus 320. Panthers and Falcons have remained longer shots. But it is fascinating to watch the steam come in on the Saints and see people, not just in Louisiana, but around the country, say the Saints have a legitimate chance to get back on top of this division this year.
Right. I think they definitely do, especially with the interior of the Bucs offensive line looking a little shaky. And then Tom Brady's, he's 45 years old, people. I mean, he can't do it forever. I mean, I still think he'll have another Pro Bowl caliber season, but it's like, I feel like, he's vulnerable to where, like, if he would get the big hit to him and he might not shake back as quick as a lot of people are thinking. Everyone, he's invincible. He's the GOAT. He's going to win another Super Bowl, but there's no giving. I mean, there's no giving. He's got a lot of weapons, but with that shaky offensive line, he's just a hit or two away from. I mean, he retired in the offseason. He's definitely knows that his clock's ticking. So it's like, I feel like at any point he could get knocked out.
I don't know if you saw it, Spencer. He had a press conference this week that was just extremely bizarre for Tom Brady. He had this big smile on his face the whole time. His hair was like poofed up. He was like totally relaxed and like I missed 10 days, but what is life really? And we all just want to be happy. And you're like, what happened to this guy? And I mean, look, people have lost a lot of money betting against Tom Brady, so maybe they will again. But something does not seem the same with Tom Brady. So we'll talk more about the NFC South Thursday when we really dig into that division. And that's going to do it for NFL talk for today's Bayou Bets. I want to spend the rest of the show talking college football because it started Saturday. We just dipped our toes in the water. And now this weekend, 5 glorious days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We've got games every day. And by the way, Richie, I agree. I like those 4 teams. I don't know about that order, but those top 4 teams in the AFC, Colts, Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs. So let's bring on Scott Rabalais. Let's talk some college football. Consider this your Bayou Bets college football preview. Scott Rabalais from The Advocate, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you guys today? Can you hear me all right?
We can.
Yes,
I'm trying to center myself properly in your little window here.
There you go. We're going to spotlight you. We appreciate you taking the time to come on. I know it's a busy camp. Want to start things off here as we talk college football with the LSU Tigers, Rab. And they play Florida State here in, 6 days until game day at the Superdome. Florida State, LSU. LSU favored by 3 points in that one. And I know all of the talk around LSU camp right now centered around quarterback. You wrote a column today. People can check it out in The Advocate tomorrow or at theadvocate.com saying Brian Kelly has his reasons for not necessarily saying publicly who the starter will be.
Yeah, just some quick thoughts after the news conference. I think we all went there to LSU today thinking, okay, we're going to really hear some big news because he's been saying there's going to be a decision made by today. And he said a decision has been made over the weekend, but he's not telling anyone if it's going to be Jaden Daniels or Garrett Nussmeier getting the first snap against Florida State Sunday night. Like Kelly said, he's got his tactical reasons. Florida State's already played a game. LSU's got new offense, new defense, new coordinators, new coaches, a lot of new players. Wants to keep them guessing as much as they can, especially since Florida State has played. But I also think it could be a little bit of a political game that Brian Kelly's playing. Look, he's already lost Miles Brennan, so I said, like, I'm done. It looked like Miles was probably third string. Certainly not the starter. And I think he would like to have lower the chance of the guy who doesn't get the start, Daniels or Nussmeier, hitting for the transfer portal, leaving him only with Walker Howard, a true freshman who hasn't taken a college snap, as his only backup. So I personally think that as tough a position as it is to play, especially in the SEC, that the guy who doesn't get the start against Florida State might still end up getting some significant playing time at some point this year. I think Jaden Daniels is a little dangerously thin looking to me to be putting up with the pounding in the SEC. So we'll see about that. So I wouldn't fret too much, but I think Kelly's trying to keep everybody in the mix and entertained and engaged with what's going on. But somebody's going to break this news before Sunday night. I'll be shocked if we don't hear some report from somewhere that one guy or the other is going to be the starter.
And not that you're reporting it necessarily, but your lean at this point is that will be Jaden Daniels when it happens.
Yeah, I mean, Daniels seems to have gotten more of the first team snaps when we saw practice in preseason drills. And by the way, we're not going to see any practices the rest of the way. Practice is now closed, so we're not going to be able to go to practice and say, oh, well, Jaden Daniels is working a lot with the ones, or Garrett Nussmeier is. So that was a predetermined plan. I don't think it was because of the quarterback situation. But yeah, I think Daniels gives them more of the playbook that they want to use. More of a run pass option. He's definitely the better runner, and Nussmeier is a little bit of the better passer, and not a statue by any means. He's got some mobility to him. But I think that could be an important factor behind an offensive line that's trying to get its act together. Going into this first game, and we still don't know for sure, who's going to be, how good they're going to be. So. I think for those factors, I think Daniels is likely the guy. Would entirely shock me if it's Nussmeier, but I think Nussmeier just have to just be patient, because like I said, I'm not hoping for it by any means, but Daniels could have a situation where you need two quarterbacks to get through a season, and in the NFL and in college, and I think especially true in a league like the SEC.
Yeah, and Miles Brennan be a nice guy to have around for depth, but also understandable he didn't want to take that beating anymore for maybe just to sit on the bench. By the way, Scott will join us Sunday pregame show from Champion Square outside the Caesars Superdome, Florida State LSU, a special edition of Bayou Bets, and we'll preview the game. LSU a 3-point favorite here, Rab, but overall, as we look at their odds, not a ton of optimism from the odds makers here. The one I really circle is at the bottom there, the win total just 7 and actually slightly juiced to the under. Feels like a lot of people think this is a transition year where Brian Kelly's going to need a year to really ramp up his program. Is that the feeling you get around the program, or are they ignoring that normal 1-year transition period?
Look, I think anyone, if they're honest, whether they're inside the program or without, will say that this is a year where they just don't have all the pieces they want or need to have to compete for championships in the SEC and to compete for a playoff spot. You just don't know what we're going to see at quarterback. The running back position is a little bit unsettled. John Emery is probably going to miss the first couple of games, and Noah Kane is a transfer who's coming in. Receivers, tight end look pretty good. Offensive line's a little unsettled. Defensive line looks great. Linebackers look a little bit unsettled. The secondary got a lot of talent, a lot of experience. Just not a lot of us played together. These are a lot of guys coming from all kind of different points on the compass, and then all new kickers. So I think all that combined with the fact that you're playing in the SEC makes you say, this is a little bit of a season where some patience is going to be required. I think the best they could do is 9-3. I think 7 wins. I think there'll be some improvement over last year. 7 wins certainly possible. I'm going down the middle for 8-4. I'm kind of a down the middle kind of guy. So I would say that, and that kind of hinges to me on whether they can beat Florida State or not. If you can beat Florida State, I think they have a chance to start pretty strongly. Start the season. If you can go to Auburn maybe 4-0. Got to beat Miss State at home, and that's going to be a reasonably tough game. But if you can go to Auburn and be 5-0, hey, maybe you build some momentum and you can lean towards the 9-3. But if you're only 3-2 coming out of the Auburn game, then 7 wins might look pretty good.
For sure. And so speaking of Florida State, Scott, I was just wondering your thoughts on what do you think the strength of their team is? Do you think their offense will be more of an issue for LSU, or is it on their defense?
Yeah, obviously, they had a game against Duquesne, an FCS opponent. They kept things pretty close to the vest. I think the quarterback only threw like 15 passes. I think they got some big receivers. They got one kid I saw catch a touchdown pass. He's like 6'7". So they got some big targets to throw to. And obviously, they had 3 running backs who rushed for 100 yards in the game. So they've got a stable of running backs they can go to. But their offensive line, a lot of penetration in the game to an opponent the caliber of Duquesne, and the defense was good, I think. But I think we're going to have to see if they can be as productive against LSU's front and against LSU's, like I said, talented but chemistry lacking, maybe secondary. So that's going to be an interesting thing how they test them. But I think probably I would lean to the offensive side of Florida State. They look pretty good. A 47-7 win, about what you'd expect. It wasn't like 73-7, and it wasn't they only got by 21-3. They won pretty handily in the rain. Didn't want to show too much, so I expect to see there'll be a lot of wrinkles from both teams that neither team has seen come Sunday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, really a swing game, as you mentioned, Rab, right off the bat of this Florida State game, win or lose, could kind of foretell the way the rest of the season goes for LSU.
Even Brian Kelly has said that. How they play, it maybe not the win or loss necessarily. He can say that in his first year, right? But how they play, it will could be very telling.
Let's take a wider view at the college football landscape here for a few minutes, and we'll first take a look at the SEC, where it's amazing. I mean, of all the superlatives about Nick Saban, here's just another one, that he could have an odds-on favorite, a -145 favorite in a conference this deep and this tough, that they are better than 50-50 expected to win this conference. Georgia, obviously, the only other team even near even money, and then you get to Texas A&M, and it goes down from there. When you handicap the SEC, is there any reason to think other than an Alabama-Georgia rematch in Atlanta in December?
Well, after watching Vanderbilt destroy Hawaii the other night, maybe so. Maybe no.
You taking the 1,000-1 down there?
It's worth a flyer, huh? 100.
Jim Derry is.
Yeah, that's 1,000-1.
A couple of bucks, right? I mean, what the.
The doors.
somebody at SEC Media Days picked them to win the SEC, and maybe they knew something, but no, Hawaii is obviously awful. I'm being totally kidding there. No, it's hard to see anyone winning the division. I know people are talking a lot about Texas A&M, and it's trendy to talk about Texas A&M. Certainly, they had the recruiting class that got everyone's notice this year, with the having 24/7 Sports rated as the best recruiting class ever. And did they do it all on the up and up or not? Nick Saban, and Jimbo Fisher got into it. But the fact remains, while Texas A&M beat them last year, they still lost 4 games in the SEC. They still lost to LSU and Arkansas and Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And I just, they got no margin for error. I mean, if they don't win October 8th in Tuscaloosa, they got no
you need Alabama to lose twice at that point.
Right. Yeah. It becomes so difficult to win the division otherwise. And then, of course, divisions are going away, in a couple of years. But, for now, it's still the way we do things in the SEC. Georgia, obviously, you would think they've lost a tiny bit from last year, but still, I just don't see anyone else being able to mount a charge. Florida's just starting out under Billy Napier. Tennessee, again, looks trendy, not as trendy as Texas A&M, but they certainly shows some promise at least offensively under Josh Heupel last year. Their defense was terrible, and then Kentucky. I'm pretty impressed by Kentucky and what Mark Stoops has been able to do there and just build a solid program. And certainly we saw them in person last year against LSU. They just pushed LSU around most of that game, and that's not what you really expect. He's built a physical brand of football team there that could at least be a kingmaker, if not a king, in the SEC in the SEC East. So it's just hard to. You just seem like you're throwing your money away if you're not picking Alabama and Georgia to be playing in Atlanta in December.
Yeah, I would think so. But you think like LSU and Florida, I kind of view them as kind of similar. Both with first year head coaches, and with big names to it, Kelly and Napier. So you thinking they might be the teams that might be worth taking a shot on as like a flyer outside of Alabama and Georgia?
Well, you pretty much have. It sounds a little bit boring to say, but you pretty much have the top three that you're looking at with Alabama, Georgia, and then Texas A&M, which is picked in the preseason top 25. The AP pollsters have them at number 6. So you pretty much have those teams, and then if you're looking for some of the team that you can say, well, they have a shot if they LSU gets Alabama at home, right? I mean, you have a shot, and in Florida, they play the teams. They got the annual game in Jacksonville with Georgia, and that's a rivalry game and a neutral site. You know exactly what's going to happen. So you have to probably go one of those teams. Ole Miss is an interesting team. Ole Miss has a schedule to start out with, and I'm not putting my fingers on it just right at this current moment. But they have a schedule where it would not be totally shocking to see them go in, start the season like 7-0, 8-0.
Yeah, I've got it here. It's Troy, Central Arkansas, Georgia Tech, who's no good, Tulsa. Then they get Kentucky at home, and then at Vandy. That's 6 right there. Yeah.
Then Auburn, then at LSU. And then, of course, then you finish at LSU, at A&M, Alabama, at Arkansas, Miss State. But coming into Baton Rouge on October 22nd, they have a real shot to be undefeated. So if you can, again, carry momentum and you can build something around, Jackson Dart, the new quarterback, maybe you could have something there. That would be a team to me if you're really looking for somebody to be like, okay, totally off the wall. They've never done it before, but they've certainly shown some promise under Lane Kiffin. I think. If you're looking for that kind of pick, I would pick Ole Miss.
All aboard the Lane train, baby. I've got my eye on Tennessee, and I know people will laugh because it seems like Tennessee's always the trendy preseason pick. I see 40-1 as being value there. That says there's a 2% chance they win the SEC. I'd take 5%. I still don't think it'll happen, but I think there's some value there. We widen the scope a little more and look at national championship odds. They actually look fairly similar. Alabama, Georgia, joined by Ohio State up there, and then it kind of goes down from there. Clemson, USC. Is there a team outside of that top 3? And we'll look at this in a different way in a moment. But a team outside of that top 3 you have your eye on, Rab.
Isn't there a bet you can make that you can take either the top 3, one of those top 3, or the field? Like the whole
let's
rest
just
of
do it right
football?
now. Here you go.
Yeah. Man, you guys are sharp on this show. I tell you what.
We like to think so.
Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, or the field. Is there anyone besides those teams? You get, like I said, people are high on Texas A&M. I still got to see Texas A&M do it. There's a lot of people thinking, hey, Marcus Freeman is going to do it at Notre Dame what Brian Kelly couldn't. He's going to rally the troops. He's the trendy young coach, and they're going to like him more than Brian Kelly. Let's see. USC is an interesting one because you have a coach who's won a lot in Lincoln Riley. You're leaving Oklahoma. They hit the transfer portal really hard. They got Caleb Williams, the former Oklahoma quarterback. A lot of people are. I saw it was one story. Matt Hayes, I forget who he writes for now. He used to write for the Sporting News, just gushing about USC, saying they're all the way back. They're gonna. I don't know about all that, but maybe so. It's the Pac-12. It's a conference you could dominate. And Oregon lost their coach. Mario Cristobal went to Miami. Some people are going to peg Michigan as making a return to the playoff, but they were. Ohio State looks like the big favorite in that conference. So Anyone I like out of that group that's on that board besides the top three, I really want to say Utah. I really want to say Utah, but I'll probably say USC. Let's see what they got.
Look, I think Utah's going to win the Pac-12, and if they win the Pac-12 and they beat Florida this week, by the way, which is a huge game for them, they're going to get in the playoff. And at 40-1, I'll take my chances. I mean, yes, they'll be big underdogs against somebody, but the other team I look at there before we move on is Oklahoma, and I know they lost Lincoln Riley, they lost Caleb Williams, they lost their top receiver to USC as well. But you're telling me Oklahoma's 50-1? That has to be the highest odds they've been to win a national championship in decades. Yeah,
there's talk about a lot of people just kind of buying the Sarkisian, hey, they're going to rebound from a losing season to win the Big 12. What about Baylor? What about what Dave Aranda did at Baylor last year? It was a surprise, but they ended up winning the Sugar Bowl and finishing, maybe their greatest season ever. Yeah, they have to be considered. I wouldn't dismiss Oklahoma entirely just yet. Yeah, new coach, Venables is taking over. So kind of a more defensive guy than Lincoln Riley. So, how will that work? But I don't think Oklahoma is just bereft of talent, and they're certainly just going to fade from the map. No, I don't think that at all.
Well, let's drill down into the conferences if we can keep you for about 3 more minutes, Rab. The other Power 5 conferences besides the SEC, starting in the ACC, does it surprise you to see Clemson that heavy of a favorite after they had down season? They were 10-3.
Excuse me. Yeah, 10-3. So much depends if they've had such a great tradition of great quarterbacks. Can DJ Ugalele, I hope I'm saying his name remotely right, can he rebound from a season where he was, just not great? If he can be the quarterback they really thought he could be, well, then Clemson. But NC State, they're the team, right? That's got the big quarterback that's very highly regarded, right? His name's escaping me for the moment. Devin Leary. I mean, he's the one who's highly regarded. So, might want to take more of a flyer on NC State if Clemson can't put it together.
I do see some juicy odds there on NC State. I plus 450 when they're probably the favorite to at least win their division is very interesting. In the Big Ten, Ohio State, a big favorite. I personally can't see any reason why you would not pick. I mean, I wouldn't lay that juice on it, but they just look like by so far the best team there.
Yeah, they do. They've got a great pass and catch combination, starting with C.J. Stroud, who looks for a lot of people. I don't know if you want to get into the Heisman race later, but he's the favorite over Bryce Young because it's so hard to repeat as a Heisman trophy winner. A lot of people are looking for someone else. C.J. Stroud is excellent. So Michigan had their day, and they're not going away. I mean, they're still a legitimate top 10 team with 2 quarterbacks, and Jim Harbaugh is talking all kind of craziness. It's pretty typical, at Michigan. So, but I think Ohio State. I'll say this. I feel better about their chances of winning the Big Ten than I do about Clemson winning the ACC.
And then the last 2 Power 5 conferences, the Big 12. And these 2 are really wide open because I couldn't fit it on these graphics. But Baylor is like plus 700. They're right there as well. You mentioned them. And then in the Pac-12, Utah and USC actually co-favorites, and Oregon and UCLA also better than 10-1 odds. So lots of options here. And really these conference races, Rab, could shape the playoff race. If the SEC gets 2 teams in from time to time, if that doesn't happen, then the champion of one of these 2 leagues probably gets in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends if you get Alabama and Georgia, or somehow Ohio State and Michigan. That's probably not around the realm of possibility. But the Big 12 looks completely wide open. I know a lot of people like Texas. Oklahoma State made a big run last year. Oklahoma probably not going to go away. You can't dismiss Baylor. I mean, that like you said, you can't fit all 4 teams there, but there's 4 teams there, and then you have 4 teams to consider in the Pac-12. You make a great case for Utah, and then I like USC. UCLA, wow, that's they're up there. Over, where is Washington? Where is Arizona? Where is Arizona State? So some of these traditionally the second best program in the Pac-12 is Washington, and it hasn't been that way for a long time. But I like to say about Utah. I was kind of going USC, right? But you kind of convinced me about Utah. I think that's a very tough game for Florida to open up with. Utah's got is a bit of a role in Florida starting over.
Yeah, well, I know we need to let you go, Rab, but I appreciate you joining us. Anything else you want to say before we go, either about the Heisman race, one of the smaller conferences we didn't talk to, this weekend's games? Open floor for you to go where you want to end it.
Well, I love the first weekend of the season. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. This game, you just can keep watching. And of course, LSU and Florida State have the big platform. That's the only game in the country on Sunday night. Cincinnati at Arkansas. That's an interesting game. What's Cincinnati got after last year? Of course, LSU's new offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock is from Cincinnati, reunited with Brian Kelly. The Utah-Florida game is the one I'm really most interested in. Notre Dame at Ohio State. Boy, that's a big number, huh? The Utah Notre Dame Ohio State.
It's funny. Marcus Freeman mentioned that in his press conference today. There's a clip of him going around saying, "What did you say it was? 17.5 points? Got to bring that up in the team meeting today." It's funny to see sports betting enter the public consciousness to the point where coaches want to use it as motivation. Maybe they always did, but now they can
how much has changed since LSU won the national title 2.5 years ago, basically? How much has changed in college football? It's mind-blowing with NIL and the transfer portal and sports betting and stuff like that just becoming so mainstream. I will say this about the Heisman race, of course. A lot of people, like I said, Bryce Young, there's only been one repeat Heisman winner, Archie Griffin for Ohio State back in the 70s. So a lot of people don't like that for Bryce Young. A lot of people like Will Anderson, the linebacker at Alabama, that he could be the first true defensive player in a long time to win it. But it's hard when you split the vote. When you have two Heisman candidates, it's kind of like having two quarterbacks. Say you really have none. When you have two Heisman candidates on one team, they can cancel each other out, and so that could open the door for Mr. C.J. Stroud there from Ohio State if he has the season people expect.
Well, Rab, we appreciate your time today, and weather permitting, we'll see you in Champion Square on Sunday afternoon before the game for a special edition of Bayou Bets. We will drill down on LSU Florida State then, but until then, read Scott's work in The Advocate, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. See you Sunday.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. That is Scott Rabalais of The Advocate, our LSU Baton Rouge columnist, and he does a great job. And really, Spencer, I thought a lot of great insight there.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, good to catch up with him there to get that college football scoop because, it's coming up 5 days worth of games there. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, God. I just can't wait. Thursday night, my alma mater is Missouri. They play Thursday night. Also, Penn State, Purdue. West Virginia Pitt is Thursday night. I didn't even put that on this graphic. I will point out one that's interesting to me, and we haven't talked about it yet. Alabama, 41.5 point favorite over Utah State. And the reason that's interesting to me is in the offseason, Caesars Sportsbook and a couple of other books took these massive, like $1,000 bets, which aren't, by the grand scheme of things, that's not a ton of money. But considering that it was at 1,000 to 1 odds, so you're talking about $1,000 bet to win $1 million on Utah State to win the national championship. And of course, that just sounds absolutely insane. And the reason it's insane is that line right there. Utah State's 41.5 point dogs. Like, what the hell are people thinking? But I will say this. A group of 5 team like a Utah State has no chance to win a national championship unless they play a team like Alabama and happen to beat them early in the season. I'm not putting Alabama on upset watch or anything like that, but somebody somewhere thinks Utah State has a chance in that game.
Yeah, I guess if Bryce Young gets abducted by aliens, then yeah, maybe they'll have a chance. But even then, I wouldn't bet on it.
I don't know where that's coming from, but to me, it's worth pointing out there's more than $1,000 bet on Utah State to win the national championship at 1,000 to 1, and their odds went all the way down to like 200 to 1 after that because the books don't want to have too much liability. They've already got multi-million-dollar liability on the Aggies of Utah State. And of course, but if they lose this game, they basically have no path. Those bets are basically dead because even if you go on and you go 11-1 with only a loss to Alabama, you win the Mountain West Championship. Like we talked about it every week on this show last year. Cincinnati had to have heaven and earth moved for them to get in, and they were undefeated with a win over Notre Dame last year. with a win, I think, over Indiana, another Power 5 team, and from a very good American Athletic Conference where they were beating UCF and beating a 10-2 Houston team and things like that, just to get into the playoff. Utah State, I mean, if they beat Alabama, sure, that bet looks great because they've got a chance, but they're 41.5-point dogs.
Better yet, the aliens are gonna have to abduct their entire starting lineup
To
and
take Will Anderson
Saban.
too, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Crazy
we
stuff,
want
man.
the aliens come down and want only the guys in the crimson jerseys. That's the only way this works.
Yeah.
Although
Right.
maybe Nick Saban is an alien, and that's actually what's going to happen.
Yeah,
Maybe
he'll stop it. Yeah, he'll prevent the abduction.
I will say
my
this.
gosh.
I think college football season, speaking of Alabama, like, look, it's still extremely popular. People love to watch it. I love to watch it. My team doesn't really ever have a chance at winning a national championship. LSU fans will probably win another national championship in their lifetime. I feel confident saying that, unless you're going to die in the next year. It probably won't be this year. But it is a case of the haves and the have-nots, Spencer. And Rab brought it up and talked about NIL money. And I don't know if that will improve the situation or make it worse, honestly. But it is a have and have-not sport. And this is, from a betting perspective, really the best way that we can frame that. You can bet at Caesars Alabama versus the field, Alabama or Georgia versus the field, at which point you're almost at the break-even point there, minus 115 to minus 105, or Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State against the field. And now when you throw in Ohio State, you actually get a pretty good price on the field at plus 290.
Yep. Yeah, it just goes to show how confident they are in those three teams, and rightfully so. I mean, those are by far the top three, but one of those things, I think I said it a few weeks ago when we talked about this. I wouldn't touch this with, betting with my head. But if you want to throw a little $5, just bet with your heart on the plus 290 with the field. It would be cool to see the field and not one of those three, because it's just, it's just so, it's just like you said, haves and have-nots, and they just, maybe one of the have-nots could sneak in, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't necessarily think that's just betting with your heart to take the plus 290. You've got, look, there's 4 teams in the playoff. You're going to have at least one team in the playoff if you take the field, and probably 2, because as good as Alabama and Georgia are, things have to fall just right for one conference to get 2 representatives. And so unless they both go undefeated through the regular season, which could happen, but look, it's the SEC. Chances are they trip up somewhere like Alabama did last year. It takes a special set of circumstances to get 2 teams in. So chances are you're going to end up with at least 2 of the playoff teams if you take the field there. And you've got plus 290 at that point. So you can play around with some hedges. Maybe somebody like Utah or Texas A&M or Oklahoma or Michigan, Clemson has a great year, and you've got a favorite in one of those games. And if you want to take it a step further, you take the field on the middle bet here, and you get Ohio State on your side too. Chances are you've got 3 of the 4 playoff teams, and you're only fading Alabama or Georgia, and you've basically got even money. I don't mind those bets. I really don't. I mean, I know Alabama and Georgia are the best teams. I don't disagree that they're the best teams, but if you just play the odds, chances are you're going to have a pretty good chance in the end of winning that bet.
It's possible. You'd need a lot to. I feel like this is one of those Alabama teams that's going to just be absolutely nasty. And I think they're going to go undefeated and win it all. But we all know with football, there's always the chance of injuries. So I feel like that's, somewhat baked in with these odds. If it wasn't for that, Alabama would be even heavier of a favorite. But, I mean, if something would happen to Bryce Young or Will Anderson, well, then, yeah, their chances would go down significantly. But they're just so freaking dominant.
Yeah, and they are. And look, I get it. When you look at game by game, it's hard to see where Alabama loses a game. But they play at Texas. Say what you want about Texas. We had a comment earlier from WTF saying Texas over 8.5 wins. Okay, they got to play at Texas. They got to play at LSU. They got to play Texas A&M at home. I think they play Tennessee. I think they play at Tennessee. Are they favored in all of those games? Absolutely. They will be favored in all of those games, probably by more than a touchdown. But just looking at it percentage-wise, that means, okay, they've got, let's say, an 80% chance of beating Texas, an 80% chance of beating Texas A&M, a 90% chance of beating LSU, a 90% chance of beating Tennessee. Well, if you do the math on those and multiply together all those percentages, you're pretty quickly going to get under 50% that they're going to go undefeated. Like the chances, because the schedule is so strong, because the SEC is still strong. Didn't even talk about Ole Miss, who Sheldon liked. I mean, I'm sorry, who Rab liked.
Yeah.
Like chances are they will slip up 1 week, no matter how good they are. And so I like those field bets, but I get your perspective too, where, boy, it just feels difficult to bet against them.
Yeah. I might throw a little something on the field because, man, I can't stand Alabama and Saban. But
yeah, and I really think too, like Georgia, I don't see Georgia repeating. I know they're very strong. They probably get back to the SEC championship game, but then you're betting on them to beat Alabama and beat two other good teams in the CFP. That defense is not going to be nearly as good. You can't be nearly as good when you lose 7 starters to the NFL draft, including the number 1 overall pick, Travon Walker. And so to me, I like that field bet with when you're fading Alabama and Georgia, because you're probably only going to have to worry about one of them. It's either going to be Alabama or Georgia. Again, is there a chance we see a repeat of the national championship game, Alabama versus Georgia? Sure, there's a chance. But mathematically speaking, it's just not very likely. And so that's what I like.
For sure. Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's just I'm just scared
my
that
case.
this Alabama team, and I hope you're right. My heart wants Alabama to fall, but my head's telling me this is just going to be one of those dominant Bama teams. Because Saban said it last year. It was like a rebuilding year for them. A rebuilding year for them is 12 wins, but it just goes to show they're going to be it's scary that they're going to be probably even better this season. So it's just, we'll see. But
I agree. It is and they are scary. I'm not disagreeing with that. So speaking of scary, let me tell you about the ridiculously awesome lineup we have coming up for you the week ahead. Tomorrow, Spencer and I will be back for another edition of the Fantasy Roundup at 2:00. It's going to be our final Fantasy Roundup before the NFL season. We're taking a week off Labor Day because we're moving Bayou Bets on Labor Day to that Tuesday, September the 6th. So there will be no Fantasy Roundup this week. So this is your last chance to get draft questions in. It is also, incidentally, your last chance to join our Bayou Bets Listener Fantasy Football League. If you want to join, drop a comment right now or send me an email at zewing@theadvocate.com, and we'll get you in that league. I think we got 3 spots left, so the first 3 people to respond are going to get those spots. And the winner, by the way, is going to get tickets, field level Caesar Suite, to the season finale, Saints versus Panthers. So fantasy football season ends in week 17. You win it, you get tickets to the week, or even if you're just the top listener, because we're not giving you the tickets, Spencer. Spencer's probably going to win the league. We're not giving you the tickets. The top listener finisher gets tickets to Saints Panthers field level on January, I think it's January the 8th, in the Superdome. And so there's that. Then on Thursday, we'll have Bayou Bets, 4:00. We're going to finish our NFC South preview. That's going to be fantastic. We're going to lead you right into we're going to talk about the Saints' 3 division foes: Falcons, Panthers, and Bucks. And we'll have that. And we'll also talk college football opening weekend. Then on Saturday, the new sportsbook, the new Caesar Sportsbook at Harrah's Casino in New Orleans, opens Friday. We're broadcasting live there Saturday from the first full day of college football. It's going to be awesome. There's going to be games going on in the background. We're going to be shooting the breeze. I think Kenny Mayne might stop by, former SportsCenter anchor. We're going to have some other people stop by and just kind of shoot the breeze about the college football Saturday, what live bets we're tailing. We want to hear your comments. That's going to be great. That's going to be at 1:00 Saturday live here on these same channels. And then on Sunday, of course, our live show from Champion Square outside the Superdome, LSU versus Florida State. We're going to start at 4:00 Central Time, go live for an hour. We're going to talk to Scott Rabalais again about the game, trying to line up some guests from the Florida State side, trying to figure out exactly what we think about who is going to win that game, LSU against Florida State in the Dome. So that is our Labor Day weekend coming up. It's going to be fantastic. And I want to remind everybody, too, if you want to go to that game, you can get tickets. Sign up for Caesar Sportsbook. If you're already signed up, you got to get a friend or your wife or your husband or whoever to sign up. NOLA.com/LSU Ticks. Sign up, make a deposit. at Caesar Sportsbook, and you're entered into a drawing for tickets to the Louisiana kickoff game, LSU against Florida State. NOLA.com/LSU ticks. Do that. Email me, zewing@theadvocate.com, to get into our listener league. I'm freaking pumped, Spencer. Can you tell?
Oh, it's going to be lit. We got a lot going on. You know, that fantasy league is going to be off the chain because we got a lot of heavy hitters in there already. So can't wait to see how everyone does. You know, I mean, yeah, of course you want to, you know, try to be the top listener to win those tickets, but don't just settle for that. Try to win the league. You know, try to top me and Zach. You know, I mean, we know our stuff, but we don't know it all. So, you know, we gotta push yourself to not only win the tickets but win the league. So I love competition, man. This will be my 16th league, so I'm trying to win all 16. But I know that's going to be a challenge. So we'll yeah, maybe this will be the one I slip up. So y'all,
this man's confidence will be on your screen tomorrow at 2:00. And by the way, even if you don't win the tickets, if you're like the second place and third place listener finisher, we got some Bayou Bets swag. We got this beautiful coffee mug I've been drinking out of. I think we're gonna have some Caesar Sportsbook swag as well. We might even try to get some of the JB Smoove glasses. So there's gonna be other prizes too. Email me, zewing@theadvocate.com, if you would like to play, and sign up for the Caesar Sportsbook and get those tickets. NOLA.com/LSUTIX. Until then, for Spencer the Guru Urquhart, I'm Zach Ewing. This has been Bayou Bets, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody, for the Fantasy Roundup.